So can I invite Candice to share with us next, please?
You can. I've been dipping in and out, but I dipped in and didn't intend on listening to Matt, and then I have, and then Donna, and I've got all hell broken loose downstairs, but I'm really looking forward to explaining a little bit about my sort of career path in law. So I'm a practicing conveyancer, CILEX conveyancing practitioner. It wasn't my intention to go into law. I wanted to do something like social work that required a degree. At the age of 16, I'd finished school, completed GCSEs, and I just needed an income in independence. So what I wanted to do versus reality was just not possible at the time. But I had a good work ethic, and that's always been with me. I found myself working with a recruitment agent to find a position full-time. Monday to Friday, I wanted my weekends to be my own. Everything long-term seemed to require experience or a degree or was temporary. After a short time working in a temporary position, I was offered a full-time job with a local solicitor, which seems to be the common theme here, but I was an office junior. On the first day, I dressed for the job I wanted and not the job I had. And I arrived at work prepared for everything they were going to throw at me. I looked up to those who I considered were subject matter experts in their field of expertise, and I knew I wanted to do more than photocopy, cover reception, and the usual admin tasks which come with an office junior role. Having waited patiently, I was finally taken into the conveyancing department as a secretary to start my progression. That was early 2000, house prices had doubled overnight, and property was a very busy world, and therefore conveyancing was my route to the legal sector by default. Around 5 years later, as a junior fee earner, I left to work with a new employer to enhance my career, and I took on a role managing a small team. This would add experience to my belt, and the opportunities available to me by my new employer would set me in good stead for a bright future. My role changed greatly over the years, depending on demand. I'm in the property industry, which means we have peaks and troughs, and I jumped around to suit the structure of the business. But it came to a sharp halt, actually, and it wasn't my employer. It was my lack of qualification. Regulators insisted on any head of department or supervisor being qualified to a standard, which was a bit of a kick, because by this time I had been in the industry for around 10, 11 years, newly qualified solicitors coming through and were leaving me behind, and it was all due to lack of qualification. So this meant no amount of experience or ability to carry out the role was going to help, and I needed to go back to school. I had no experience of studying at a higher level. I needed to throw myself into learning how to study, and not just how to study, but to study law. It was going to be quite a challenge. I had the right attitude, and I decided to embark on my studies through CILEX to gain the qualification of fellow. 4 years of study felt like a long time to me. I get bored easy, and in fact pretty much wanted to wake up one morning with my stripes. I had a 1-year-old at the time. I didn't want my studies to hang over me for a long time. I embraced my first set of materials, working hard to complete my level 3 exams, if we're talking legacy, in 12 months, with my level 6 the same. 2 years and I'll be done. If my exams were marked on my attitude towards qualifying, I would have come away with distinction. The level 3 units were achievable in 1 year. Exam week came twice yearly and was busy. Revision had to be very organised, but I got through. I failed 1 exam, which was civil litigation. It wasn't my area, it wasn't my language. And it was the unit that was put on by the college I was studying with, so it wasn't my choice. In hindsight, I would have chosen my subjects myself through a distance learning provider, rather than being funneled into subjects, which made the qualification a little bit more challenging than it had to be. But I did what I was told and didn't particularly understand what was available to me outside my local college. 12 months on, ready for a resit, and then to commence my level 6, I was looking forward to qualifying. These were the days prior to requirements for qualified employment application and work-based learning logbook. So, and I could see that this was coming in the future. I think I had something like 18 months to qualify, otherwise I'd have to be subjected to the dreaded portfolio. So time wasn't on my side. I thought, if I pass the exams, I'm done, I'm a fellow, excellent. If I've sat level 6 exams, I think there's 12 in 1 year, I can do 6 at level 6. How wrong could I be? The reality was I had rushed through my level 3 with no appreciation of the leap from level 3 to level 6, and it hit me like a brick. My first exams were conveyancing and land law. It was my area of expertise. I expected them to be straightforward. I didn't think I had any need to revise or even study much. I just look at the question, write everything I know, and these were all the assumptions I had, and we all know what happens when we assume. It wasn't quite that simple, and the big fat fail in my land law exam knocked my enthusiasm and my self-esteem. This had an impact on my timescale and would now shift me into another year of study. I finally picked myself up and applied again, convincing myself I simply read the course materials from my study provider this time, and that would be all that was needed. So there I was, 6 months later, the external exam centre, manual read, ready to go. I wrote throughout the exam until my hand hurt and until I was almost at the end. 15 minutes to go, I had nothing else to give. And I knew I should be using that time to write. I felt light on my cases, couldn't remember them, but the truth was that I just hadn't tried hard enough. I thought they would just stick, and how important can a 150-year-old case be? Again, I had written everything I knew with very little structure and even less authority. No surprise, I failed. Continuing to have the weight of a half-completed qualification over my head, I just wanted to finish it. I'd never been a starter finisher, so this was also a challenge for me. And then that thing called life got in the way. My spare time was spent renovating a new home, more children, my husband is military and deployed. We had a death in the family, it's just life. It was hurdle after hurdle. I tried to pick up my studying, my books would sit collecting dust and would come out in the run up to exam session where I'd approach the exam with the intention of getting it through at this time, but to no avail. I wouldn't fail, I simply acknowledged I didn't know how to sit the exam, and I just rescheduled it. And one evening, I was checking my emails to have one from CILEX to talk about practice rights. No need to sit the exams. You simply need to have knowledge and experience and be able to demonstrate that this by providing the portfolio evidence. The knowledge element would be exempt for me for 2 portfolios. So rather than the 5, it would be reduced to 3. I had my conveyancing practice exam at level 6 and my skills unit. So if I could just squeeze through my land law, I would be ready to make an application. And gain practice rights supported by the 3 portfolios and a logbook showing off my knowledge. No more exams after that and I would be qualified, and this gave me the boost that I needed. I would get the outcome I wanted, and little effort, I could drop 2 exams. I found a new learning provider, BrightLink. I needed to have a tutor on the other end of emails and phone. I needed someone to tell me when I was on track and when I wasn't. I hadn't had that before with my previous provider. I'd always paid the fee and been left to it. I paid for the course, accessed the materials, made a study plan with 12 weeks to go into the exam, leaving sufficient time for revision sessions and more in case I needed it. By this time in my life, I had 3 children, aged 9, 3 and 1 at the time, and my husband still worked away. I had every excuse not to complete the qualification, but I wanted to qualify more than I wanted an excuse. How could I raise my children to encourage them to stick to something when I didn't see something through myself? My study plan needed to be tight and I needed to follow it. Study exercises needed to be completed, and within the time frame, I needed to allow my tutor time to respond and work with me on my lack of knowledge. Completing my first study exercises, I had comments like a little more authority needed, but good overall, or you need a bit more detail, especially authority. And then it went on, it was, you know, as before, your answer needs more detail and more authority, but good try. And slowly I could see where I needed to improve my detail and my authority. And this was the difference between my pass and my fail. and then study exercise 2, and I start to implement that feedback. And then I'm coming out with you know, marks 35 out of 45. It's excellent result. Your work shows a great understanding. Well done. And this feedback, working with my tutor and listening to her comments, helped immensely. I didn't go on to get a distinction in my exam, despite my study exercises reaching 98% as they went on. But I did get the pass mark that I needed to be able to move on with my qualification. And this gave me the boost I needed to sit 2 further exams consecutively, passing each. Not only did I want practice rights, but I was going for fellowship. I was on a roll, and there wasn't any stopping me. My technique had improved. I had organised myself. I sat 2 further exams and made my application for conveyancing practice rights at the same time. I think it's essential to understand that as you start your journey, there's no easy route. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Your tutor knows how to get you through your exams, and you need to listen to them and learn from the feedback. You pay a fee for a tutor and for a course provider. They recommend reading material, and you need to buy that reading material, and you need to understand that area of law. You need to allocate yourself time to study, and sacrifices need to be made. Exams come after Christmas, and for me in June they came directly after my birthday, so I didn't have much of a life for a couple of years. But if you need a mentor or a buddy, there are so many people out there. Social media is such a powerful thing, especially the CILEX groups, and you also get different college providers jumping on with various bits of information there. So there is so much more available now. I'm really proud of my determination to get through this qualification, especially having practice rights, because I feel that that puts me a step in front of the regulators and the insurers as they close in on the qualifications to prove the lawyer's ability to do the job in what's a very high risk area of law. My determination is now channeled into bringing those up who work with me to fly the CILEX flag, help mentor people and educate employers on how to allow them to progress in line with solicitors. A previous employer of mine had an absolute bar on promotion because their matrix wasn't written for CILEX lawyers, and they would need a separate matrix for CILEX lawyers to promote them. They didn't want CILEX lawyers to be on par with solicitors. Quite an old-fashioned view, but there we are. But this is clearly a common theme, one which we've heard. I think Donna's story was very similar. So going forward, I plan on setting the standard, and I enjoy working with Brightlink to help mentor their learners through such a programme, and employers as well, not just the candidates but the employers.
Thanks so much, Candice.